thank you very much for inviting me here.
I'll spotlight you, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me here. Happy Sabbath, everybody. It's nice to be here. It's a genuine pleasure. I think I'm scheduled to speak every other month at Sacramento Fellowship. Sometimes camp meetings will get in the way and it will probably just be cancelled. But otherwise, I should see you every other week, which will be nice. Okay, let's open with prayer. Almighty God in heaven, we thank you for this message. We thank you for good friends. We thank you for good fellowship. And we just pray that your Holy Spirit be with us as we go over this message. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so I thought today we would just do a few topics which Elder Parminder has thrown out there over the past weeks and months. 3A, formalization, repeating pattern, shakings, agricultural model, things like that. So I'm not good at keeping an eye on the chat. If anyone says anything in the chat, someone will have to read it out to me. Someone can have that job. And otherwise, just call out any questions or answers or anything like that. I did see that in the chat. So I do have to explain. This apartment...
Is that Connor?
So I should explain, seeing as you brought it up. It's not the elephant in the room, it's the kitten in the room. But this apartment is very small. And the only place I can put a whiteboard and get decent internet is on Sunny's dinner table. So I just want to say thank you to little Sunny here for lending us his dinner table.
Thank you.
But it means he might... it means he might jump up and down. You might see his butt now and again because he faces that way to eat. Okay, too much information. Let's get a move on. Where should we start? I guess we should draw a line. So we should always work off the line of the 144,000, the big line, unless we need a fractal, because the big line is the template. That's one way to calm your nerves, isn't it? Isn't it ridiculous that I still get nervous before I speak? But a good laugh kind of cures that. So there you go. Okay, so we've got how many way marks on the line?
5.
We'll start with easy questions. Good. Oi, not very straight. And what verse do we use to qualify that? Say, as a parable, we make application of a verse. Anyone remember it?
Ezekiel
God's
20:34.
hand. Well, Ezekiel 20:34. So this darkness or scattering, if you're going to do 1, 2, 6, God's people are scattered, and it's here that they start to be gathered. And God will gather God's people with God's hand, which has 5 fingers. Okay. 144,000. Date?
1989.
1989. Next one, or any of them?
2001.
Good. Next one.
Sunday law.
They lie.
Last 2.
Close of probation and second advent.
Good. And what verse do we use for close of probation?
Daniel 12:1.
Good. Well done. Okay, we'll see if we need another line later or not. We may as well do the minor way marks. So, what's this one?
$1991.
Good. Next one, formalization.
96.
Good. This one,
2009.
2009.
2009. And this one,
2012.
Well,
2012. Okay. So here's a question. So what do we call this waymark?
2520?
That, for 2009, that was the internal doctrine, correct? But what do we call the waymark?
Increase of knowledge.
Increase of knowledge.
Increase of knowledge.
Right.
And the next one?
Formalization.
And then this one would be
Test.
Test.
good. Okay. So as we're doing that repeating pattern, what's this waymark called in this pattern?
Is it the unsealing?
Good. Unsealing. Okay, so what's this an increase of knowledge on? What's the knowledge on? What's God giving you knowledge on?
Well, time, or the 2520.
But in the repeating pattern, so let's say I just picked either this one or this one or this one. In any repeating pattern, what's the increase of knowledge on? On
The
what waymark?
test, Sunday law.
The test. Good. So you're going to get an increase of knowledge on this test. And then, obvious question, what's the formalization on? Same answer. The formalization is going to test you on this waymark. Oh, Sunday law, you said it. I just registered. Well done. Okay, so what is the test at Sunday law? Let's move it back a bit. What's the test at Sunday? We're not going to be here all day, are we? Someone just shouted out. Everyone knows.
Gender equality.
Good, well done. So we've got trans, inclusive, radical, feminism. And there's one other test. What's the other test? Sunday law.
Sexism?
Sexism would be radical feminism, gender equality. Okay. So think of Acts 27. And the ship can be America. What happens to America at the Sunday law?
Shipwreck of the institutions.
Good. Shipwreck. So democracy. Well done. I just noticed that come up on the chat. So the other test is democracy. Democracy. Because democracy is shipwrecked at Sunday law. Okay, fall of democracy at Sunday law. And those are the two tests. So just as I'm there anyway, that's why it matters who you vote for. Okay, because one candidate will uphold democracy, the other will be a dictator, which is the opposite of democracy. Okay, so you've got two tests. So in 2009, did we know anything about trans, inclusive, radical feminism? Were we given any knowledge, any increase of knowledge in 2009?
No.
No. So do you think is that correct, or is it a different? No, so it must be wrong. Equally, in 2012, were we given any message on feminism, radical feminism, equality, gender equality, or anything like that in 2012?
No.
We weren't aware. No, in other words, no. So it's not 2009 and 2012. So when did we first get knowledge on gender equality?
2019.
Well done, 2019. Women wearing pants. It was in the summer of 2019 in France, in School of the Prophets, that Elder Tess first, as far as I can tell, started to introduce feminism. So that would be feminism. And then what year would the formalization be where we had radical feminism?
2021.
Good. August 2021 was same-sex marriage. October 2021 was radical feminism. So in other words, raffia and pannium, and then test. Okay. What should we do next? Let's do this. Let me put this in place because I'll need this in a minute. Okay, what's this one called? Okay, that's a trick question because we don't know what that one's called. So what's this one called?
Loud cry.
Good. I don't know what happens at the increase. You can go back over other lines in this dispensation, look at the increase of knowledge. But I don't know. So we've got loud cry there. So, okay, so in this model, you're tested. Let me word it this way, it's a bit open. What are you tested on? Because I know we've already said this. What waymark are you tested on? Put it that way.
I'm leaning that it has to be before that because you have to have been developing that in your character and in your understanding pre the actual laws that make up the Sunday law.
Yes. Good. So yeah, let's use that logic. We'll just do this quickly. Okay, if this was the line of the priests, what's this way, Mark? What's this the Sunday law for the priests?
2014.
Good. What's this way, Mark?
2001.
Good. And I'll move along a bit faster because it's just to prove a small point. We've already said 2009, 25, 20, and then time setting. Oh, down there, time setting. And that was 2012. Elder Parminder's prediction that 2014 is the Sunday. 2012. Okay. Did 2520 shape the movement? Was it a great test here? Did we have lots of fights over the 2520 in the movement?
I would say, well, I wasn't in at that time to witness the shakings within. So I think, no, it was pretty accepted. I think it was mostly in the church that there was problem, the actual church, right?
Exactly, that's right. In 2012, we were all disfellowshipped en masse, if you believe 2520. It wasn't so much 9/11 or anything else like that. But within ourselves, we didn't really have a problem. So I'm going to say that's easy. So God's not going to give you an easy test. Was there a shaking over time setting within the movement?
Yes.
Yes. So this is hard. This is difficult. So if you remember in the Vespers, February, I can't really remember, I think February, we had increase of knowledge easy. Doesn't require you to change your behavior, your belief, whatever, really. Formalization is difficult. So that's what you're tested on. Okay, that's the only reason I did that with the priests. So the waymark that you're tested on here is here, the formalization, 2021, trans-inclusive radical feminism. That's our test in this pattern. Okay, so let's use the agricultural model. I'm going to draw a picture of you now.
I'm sorry, Aaron, can I ask a question or is it not appropriate while you're doing this?
No, please do. Please do ask questions, make comments. Go ahead.
So if we're being tested on radical feminism in 2021, are we tested on democracy at the actual Sunday law waymark? Because you've listed them both as our tests.
Yes, democracy is a test.
Yes.
Sunday law waymark.
So both are the test at 2021. not just radical feminists. And that's all I'm trying to clear up in my mind.
From this model, I think I'd have to admit that I've never actually thought that through. Maybe because democracy for this movement was never a big issue, never particularly difficult. But I think your observation would have to be correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I've drawn a picture of you and me here. We're a plant. Where was I going to go with that? Give me a second. Plant receiving the rain. Yeah, so this is where we are now. So I don't think we've passed our test. We've already gone past, chronologically, the test. We've already received our test papers, if you like, what we're going to be tested on. We already know. We're so close to the Sunday law now. How do I say this? We're so close to the Sunday law. Basically, to say it, we should be able to see who's passing and who's failing this test, according to this pattern. Okay, because don't forget, when the good seed was sown, the workers went to bed that night. When they woke up the next morning, an enemy had sown tares. And while the servants have the ability to reap, servants and the reapers are actually the same workers, field farmers, whatever you call it. That's what happens when I try to read the chat. As soon as I go off, I lose my thought. So they grow together until the harvest. Right. Now, can we recognize wheat and tares? Can we read the heart as people?
When? I missed that. I was reading the chat. When are you marking?
That's what I did. So we'll just stick with this one here. Where we are today, 2024 now. We'll just say here.
I would say yes.
You'd say yes? Anyone
Yes.
say yes or no? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. You'd say yes. Okay, as it's you at the moment, Susan, on your own. What made you say yes? Was it just a guess, or do you remember something?
No.
Somebody.
Well,
Go ahead.
just even looking at the way you've laid this out, and I, like Mary, wasn't aware of the democracy piece. So this is really great that you're bringing it in. And you also mentioned that in that, our vote and which way we would be leaning, right? Toward our vote would be leaning toward someone who is promoting democracy or an authoritarian. And also we know character is revealed through actions and words. And so I would say that we can hear it through people's actions and words. If we can't actually see their behavior, we can hear it through their actions and words. And that's, to me, what's revealing the character that's developed. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to speak up for all those that might be thinking, no, that you're wrong. Okay, this is an old controversy. Okay, I'll go into that in a minute, but I'm going to try and present something now. Okay, this is Ellen White, The Watchman, January 1st, 1907, forgive as you would be forgiven. And I'm going to first of all, I'm going to take out all the gendered terms, and then I'm just going to skip along to the relevant bits, so it's not verbatim. If someone injures you knowingly and afterward repents, saying, forgive me, it's not for you to refuse to forgive, because you don't think they feel humble enough and do not mean what they say. You have no right to judge, for you cannot read the heart. So I'm going to say, no, Susan, you must be wrong. Because Ellen White says you can't read the heart. So you can't judge who's wheat or tares. Susan or anyone have any thoughts? think it's external.
I don't have the
It,
exact reference, but Elder Parminder says we can read the heart. But I can get that reference by the end of today. So how do we reconcile that?
So Germany, January 2018, parts 7 and 8. And the reason we're in 2018 for that clip is in 2016, there was that exact controversy between Mark Bruce and Elder Parminder. Okay, so I'll skip along a bit. I won't draw this out. So Mark Bruce was saying, you can't read the heart, and using quotes like that. Ellen White says so. Parminder was saying, he wasn't saying, yes, you can. Do you remember what he was saying? You can read the fruits. Well done, Troy. By the fruits we can read. So you can't read the heart, but you can see the fruits. So first the blade, then you can see who's wheat and tares. So it'd be a little bit after the sowing. Okay, now we're well into that dispensation now, the early rain. So by their fruits ye shall know them. That's because Mark Bruce was thinking morally. Elder Parminder thinks in parables. Elder Parminder was thinking prophetically. And we all have to do that. We have to think prophetically, not morally. Okay, so you can see who's the wheat and the tares by now, and you know them by their fruits. So I won't do too many questions because some of them are quite easy. What causes the fruit to bud out is the rain. Okay, what's the rain? What do we say the rain represents?
the message or messages.
Good. Good. Do you have a reference? I only know one. There's about half a dozen.
Oh, sorry, I'm flat that way.
Deuteronomy, and you might want to check because I'm a bit flat too. 32:2. My doctrine shall drop as the rain. Doctrine or message, same thing.
As soon as you say it, it rings big bells. Like, how could I have forgot?
Exactly.
Yes, thank you, Aaron.
Deuteronomy 32, my doctrine shall drop as a rain, and it's something like the small rain on the tender herb, and then something like the outpouring on the mature, something like that. Okay, that would be there. So this plant has to drink this message, absorb, believe, live this message in order to bear fruit. If a plant doesn't drink the rain, it withers and dies. So it's salvational message. It's a test, of salvational test. And a tare will reject the message. A tare will reject this raindrop or whatever message it is. And we could go back to here. It's not hard to tell. Okay, if I was committing adultery, stealing, lying, fighting, anything like that, I would know to cover that up from you all. I know to hide those, I say moral sins, it doesn't matter. I know how to hide those sins, okay? But if I don't believe in time setting, why would I hide that sin and carry on its move? I just say, no, you're wrong, because there's nothing in it for me. They don't pay me to come here or anything like that. So I'm just going to say, oh, the movement's in darkness and I'm going to leave. So you just say it out loud. Is that always true? Do the tares. By the way, in case anyone's switched on, it's not technically correct to use tares in this example. Okay, I'm not even going to go there. So do the tares. Always come straight out with it. Tell everyone. I don't believe we should accept women's opinions. Do you think people are just going to say that and play their cards now?
No, I think it's more subtle.
Right. It's more subtle, but the parable tells us that the servants, who are humans, I know what happened in France last week, that the servants are humans, the workers, and they do see the tares way back here. So we know it's true, but it's going to be more subtle than that. So the example Elder Parminder gave in Sacramento was you've got these men, and they say, I believe the message. They might be even learning it, teaching it, they're watching videos. But then one day you'll kind of catch them, and they'll say, I don't know what all this is about women having short hair. I don't like women with short hair. Okay. I think that was the example he used, just from the top of my head. And what does that tell us? That they're still absorbed in beauty standards, valuing a woman primarily, mainly, for her beauty, for her looks, for her opinions, her education, or anything like that, her intelligence. So they don't really believe the message. So if this drop there was beauty standards, they would rejected it. And you can see that now. Any thoughts? I've done a lot of talking. Any thoughts or questions? Haven't lost anyone? Go back over anything? Okay, so the easiest example I always have to go for the easiest. It's a true example. It did happen to me, not in this group, and the person has left now anyway, so I think it's okay. But this 2021, in July of 2021, you'll remember Elder Tess saying, no more brother, sister. Okay, it was over a year later that I was with someone, talking to someone. They were still using brother and sister a lot. It's not a difficult doctrine. It's not like, have you ever tried to study the 2520 from beginning to end? It's kind of difficult. It's a bit complicated, but not to say brother or sister anymore is not hard. So I said to them, oh, by the way, it's been over a year now. We don't do that anymore. And they made some silly excuse and carried on doing it. Not hard to see that they've rejected the message, okay, that they're tares. It would have been different, by the way, if they said, oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot, or, oh, really? I must be behind. Can you point me to the presentation? I don't mean showing that humility. It's great to be humble. I miss things all the time. I need to go back over them. I forget things even more often. But I mean making those silly excuses and then carrying on. Okay, so that's the repeating pattern, the test. We tested on the formalization, and it's the wheat and the tares. All those things Elder Parminder has brought up in the recent past, in the last few weeks. I'm just going to give you a minute to shout out anything, thoughts, questions, while I see what I'm meant to do next.
So when we are to look at the messenger as well as the message, how do you understand that in terms of by their fruit you shall know them?
So the message as well as the message, we should know the messenger by their fruits, by their words and actions.
So by their fruits you shall know them, right? So
Yes.
out of the, is it correct to say then, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth bears fruit?
I was thinking of that when I was going over my notes. I was also thinking of that.
So then we can read the heart by the fruit.
Okay, I see your point. Can't get around that one. Out of the heart, yeah. And that would work, at least in this prophetic fruits, that would work, yeah. That's a good observation. Okay. Okay, so that's, Parminder talked about shakings in Sacramento. So we're currently in one, it's just much more subtle. As Susan said, it's much more subtle. And that's one model for a test where people are falling away. And they're falling away already, but then they haven't physically left, same as here. There's also a second model, okay, for a test at Sunday law. And I'm going to put second selected messages 80.4 and Daniel 11:41. Second selected message is 80.4. The image to the beast is the great test to the people of God before the close of their probation, by which their eternal destiny will be decided. And that's because you're sealed here. This is the sealing time from Sunday law to Daniel 12:1. So there's a different model where you fall away after the Sunday law, but the test is still the Sunday law. So you've got like a double punch. You've got a double test at Sunday law from two different models. Unless God combines them, and it's all the same thing. I have no idea. But you've got two models. Daniel 11:41. He shall enter also into the glorious land, and many shall be overthrown. So let's look at that. Hold on. Okay. So enter also into the glorious land, Daniel 11:41, Sunday law, and many shall be overthrown. So let's just look at that then, that whole model. So you probably know this already. This loud cry, let me put it this way. This latter rain on the line of the 144,000, who's it given to? Who's the latter rain given to?
144,000.
Good. It's given to the 144,000 because they're the plants in the field of this church, us. Good. But who's it for? Who's the message for? For us.
God's people in the world too? Is that what you mean?
Good, and you said it well. It's not for the world. It's for God's people in the world. And we call them Nephilim. So you can see this is the loud cry here. Revelation 18, whatever it is, 1 to 3. No, Revelation 18, verse 4. So Babylon is fallen, but then verse 4, come out of Babylon, my people, God's people. So this is a message in this dispensation, and this latter rain is a message in this dispensation. So it's exactly the same message. The loud cry and the latter rain are synonymous. And it's given to us, and it's a bit like God says, hey, 144,000, can you give my people a message? Okay, so that's the Nephilim. So in a very simplistic way, the only way I understand is if you pass this test, the only thing I can see is that you give a faithful loud cry and the sealing angel goes, well done. You know, you gave the correct loud cry and then you're sealed. Okay, so many are overthrown. So that word overthrown, apparently, in the Hebrew, is something like escape, like slipperiness. So, who are the many overthrown, by the way? Someone will know already.
People in the movement.
People in the movement. Good. So this is how we'll try and prove that. So what you do with parable methodology is you take what you do know to discover what you don't know. Okay, so if you're in prison here, you're in Babylon. Okay, so this would be Babylon. Prison. But then you escape because God says, come out of Babylon, my people. So you escape. This is where my artwork gets tested. Yes. Don't ask me what I look like when I run that. So you escape and you're running away now. Where do you run to? Come out of Babylon and come into what?
God's ark, our church,
Good.
the truth.
Good. Our church, the truth, the movement. So we'll call this escapee the movement. So that's what we do know. And we also know those that escape out of even Edom, Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. In other words, the Nephilim. So this is the Nephilim. So in contrast then, because we're going to compare and contrast, you've got the Nephilim contrasted with the many overthrown. Okay, so we'll do the same model. You've got a prison. And if you're overthrown, it means you were free. Now you've gone into prison or into Babylon. Okay. So he said, when you're free, what do you look like when you're running? Yes, whatever. When you're free, it says you're in the movement.
That's really good, Aaron. Very simple and very clear. Especially
So
with
you
that
can
word overthrown. Because that can
Yeah.
throw you, that word.
Because for years, until Parminder developed this, we just thought the papacy enters into America with a Sunday law and many are overthrown. Most people get the mark of the beast, they keep Sunday. Just thought it was Americans, basically. But from here you can see it's actually not, because you're not free unless you're in this movement, to put it plainly. Okay. So the many overthrown, and that word many just worries me, because we've only got about 1,000 people in the movement. So we're going to lose some people here, because if you do this, that's when they physically left that test, because they rejected 2 streams in 2018. So they stuck around here, as Susan said, subtly undermining the message, saying, don't worry about them, they're European socialists. 2 streams. And then they physically leave here. So just from that model, I hope it's not true. People don't have to leave. But if we're to lose some people from here on till the Sunday law, there's only 1,000 of us. And then after that, many are overthrown. It's a little worrying. Okay. The only thing I can say with any amount of encouragement is when you get into this dispensation, anyone that's left, I think we're really going to be close. I think we're going to trust each other, because you've been through all these shakings, basically. Even if you haven't lived through them, you still studied your way through them in the last years and navigated the different tests and organizational issues as well.
Amen.
Okay.
So Aaron, it's
Yes.
Jackie. Yes, to be overthrown doesn't mean that the person or persons, individuals, whoever, would actually leave.
Yes, I think so.
Is that what you're saying?
Because that's always the way I've seen it. But now you say that, does anyone have any thoughts?
I don't know. Elder Parmenter said in Sacramento that it would be a place of where people don't have anywhere to go, so they stay.
Yeah.
I agree with Jackie, but I'm seeing from what you're demonstrating that there will come a point where if you're overthrown, you have left. You will be back in jail. And
That's
if they, and so I'm also thinking that the Sunday law is going to, maybe it's been settled and will be settled until the Sunday law, or maybe some are even waking up and seeing it now, even if it's settled. But at the Sunday law, it will no longer be able to be kept hidden. That's what I'm thinking. But I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong.
that's the way I've always seen it. But you know, when you get a question why you've always seen it that way. But I've always seen it that they leave. I think basically throughout this line, 1989, same, all these shakings, everyone's always left. I know they stick around in between here and here, from the formalization to the test. In fact, FFA stuck around all the way through the next dispensation. But that's different because they were leading out. They shouldn't have been. There should have been a change of leadership here. So they carried on staying, but they also carried on leading when Elder Jeff should have started to decrease after 27 AD, if you know what I mean. Okay.
Aaron,
but they eventually always physically leave. Yes.
I just wanted to just point out the very first time I saw that this this picture of going into prison or coming out of prison was at the international camp meeting in 2019, and it was at 7 o'clock in the morning, and Elder Tabo was doing the talks, and he did this presentation very clearly as far as the jail part and going in and out, and who's the many that are going to captivity.
Okay. So let's hope it's not many. I feel like it's written in prophecy when it's in the Bible, but we have control over our own destiny for sure. Okay, so I might try and keep it to an hour. Let's look at some of the issues.
Can I ask you something quickly, Aaron?
Yes,
So
please do.
we're headed into the agitation, or we're in the latter rain now. So the many that would be overthrown, they're plants that are already growing now, right? Because in
Yes.
the latter
Mm.
rain, you're only mature what you already are. So it's just people are just going to be getting polarized more and more from what they already are. But even still, you're saying we
Yes.
still hold the destiny in our hands. They can still change.
Yes. So, made a number of points. Forgive my colloquialism, but back in the day, Elder Parminder say it's all done and dusted by Sunday law. And there's a quote, Ellen White uses much nicer language than done and dusted. But she says something like, the latter rain doesn't perfect the plant, it just matures it. All the perfecting goes on during the early rain before the Sunday law. So you were correct when you said that. So just a note on Daniel on this. You can change. You have opportunity for salvation right up until Daniel 12:1, the day before or whatever. Okay. It's just that the models show, I say no one or hardly anyone ever does that. Okay, if you take note, the model of Noah's Ark is the clearest one because it's very simple. The door opens here, okay? The ark is built here. And the door's open. And the call goes out to the people, then to the clean and the unclean animals. That's the Levites and the Nephilim, clean and unclean. And the door stays open right up until here. So if you were a human being and you missed the call way back here 23 years ago now, by the time we get here, I don't know how many years, you can still just stroll on up that ramp and get on the ark. Okay, but in reality, I don't need to explain how difficult that is to go back and absorb all this rain in a few days, weeks, months, whatever it is. And also the humility involved in saying, oh, sorry, I was wrong, you know, that kind of thing.
Right. Because sanctification is a work of a lifetime, right? Not just a moment.
Yes, that's right. So you have to maintain 100% all the way through. Oh, good point. So if you drop off, it's very hard to come back. Good point.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we'll close on this. One or two more points. Let's look at some of the issues. So what issues will people be falling away over? So I've already said that this is the test, gender and democracy. So let me do it this way. So if you want to know what happens at the end, in an Omega history, it's the Omega of modern Israel. Then you go to the beginning. If you want to know what happens at the end, you look at the beginning. So if you go to the Alpha of ancient Israel, there was a rebellion talking about Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. I think it's number 16. Let me just put. And what was their rebellion over there? The Alpha.
Leadership.
Leadership. If you remember, they said, was it to Aaron and Moses? They said, you take too much upon yourselves. We're all holy. And so it was over leadership. They thought they should be leaders. but they weren't appointed. So basically, they tried to usurp leadership. And I'm not just making that up. We actually did use that. Jeff used it a lot. 2014, throughout all of those months, especially in the summer when it really came to a head. Path of the Just, and then Emiliana Richards and everyone actually left. Jeff would use number 16 a lot to typify that. Okay, so the Alpha of ancient Israel, there's a leadership rebellion, a rebellion over leadership. If you go to the Omega of ancient Israel,
Question, Aaron.
well, yeah,
So democracy was really, I think it's really been brought out internally, and I'm could be wrong, so please help me. With Elder Parmender's most recent meetings that he did, he's really been showing that in the organization and how the organization is set up and how he chooses right between your qualifications business wise or your spiritual experience, like God chose me sort of kind of thinking. And we're seeing a lot of internal questions now regarding that. We saw that in the questions posed at that, I can't remember the name of that particular presentation, but they were asking about how come we don't have a voice. If you recall, I'm just doing it by memory, so I'm not, it's not verbalized word for word, but they were questioning, right? That who does this choosing? And why haven't we been brought in this decision making? We didn't even know about this decision making. So I can sort of see the similarity of what you're bringing out with number 16. Is that true?
I think so. My memory's a bit vague too. I've only watched them once, but the last two campaign meetings, France and then Germany, I mean, they seem to be getting, as you said, those internal questions. It's correct. So that's a good point, actually. Internal, external. We're going to do that in a minute as well. That's a good point.
Okay, thank you.
Being talked about internally as well, right at this time here. Okay. Just a note, you made me think, you know, whilst this was the first attack on leadership, after it kind of just opened the floodgates. And after that, you get people literally saying to me, I had a dream that I'm going to be the lead, not me, but they're going to be the leader, or it's, you know, so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so are going to be the leaders. And they've all left. Okay. So, you know, that spiritual experience where you think I've had a dream or God's told me I'm going to be the leader. And I end up trying to usurp it. And it all goes wrong for me. Okay. So now I've done this wrong. Should be, no, that's correct. Omega of ancient Israel. So another text we used here, 2014 and more sort of 2015 for the Omega of ancient Israel was, I'm just going to put it this way, it's not technically correct, but John 6:6:6. John 6:6:6. And that was the Sunday law for the priests. We were using it there. The actual dialogue starts about 10 verses earlier, 55 or something like that. What's the problem for those, I'll call them tears, in John 6:55 or whatever to 66? What are those disciples complaining about? Why do they leave?
Too difficult.
Too
I'm trying
difficult.
to,
So Jesus says,
wasn't it a hard saying or something like that?
that's it. Jesus says, hey, eat my flesh and drink my blood. And they go, that's disgusting. And they walk off. Okay. And by
It was
the
a parable
way,
teaching.
Jesus didn't chase them down the road and say, hey, wait a minute. Parable. It was literal to symbolic. So I could put literal to symbolic, parable methodology. Okay. Now this is from memory. This could be wrong. I'm trying to remember back studies on that in 2015. I think Ellen White says Jesus didn't chase them and ask them to come back. Does anyone remember why? Assuming I remember correctly. Why didn't Jesus just say, I only meant symbolically. It just means hear my word. The word, eat my flesh, eat my message, drink my blood, drink my rain, that kind of thing. Does anyone, or maybe I'm even wrong, what I seem to remember is Ellen White says Jesus didn't want them to come back. No, Jesus didn't chase them to come back because he could see that later on down the road when the disciples' faith is challenged, they're going to be sowing seeds of doubt. They're going to be stumbling blocks, either tormenting them or whatever. Does that ring a bell? Or am I just,
Yeah, I remember
did I
that.
dream that one up?
I remember that, yeah.
You do? Good.
Mhm.
Okay. So I'll try and remember. Let me put 3A here. And if we've got time, I'm going to tie that into this way, mark 3A. Okay. So then if we go, I don't really want to call it the alpha, but still, if you're here, I want to go to the beginning. This is the first Sunday law for our movement. Okay, so I'll just put first Sunday law. What was the issue in 2014? Why did about 3,000 people leave? About 2,700 people left. The movement had 3,000 people. By the end of this shaking, there was 300 left. We never recovered those figures. Biggest shaking numbers wise. Why did they leave? So you could kind of guess. It was literally these two issues. That's why Jeff went there. It was to usurp the leadership. And it was literal to symbolic parable methodology. It was other things as well, like no public evangelism. Well, you prove that from parable methodology, so that's not so different. But the towers of Zephaniah, they said they're literal towers. Jeff said, no, it's symbolic. They got the locusts of Joel 2 wrong. They got the wrong symbol, things like that. So you've got the same two issues at our first Sunday law. So I wonder what's going to happen at the last Sunday law. If it's true that we can tell the end from the beginning, I think that might be too low. I didn't want to get. I've just written the last Sunday law down there.
We can see it.
Sunday lunch.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. You still see the top. Let me just go back. No, you can't see the top. Oh dear. Okay. So there's that. Any thoughts on that? And then actually I'll do the last thing. Still got some time. Any thoughts so far? Questions?
So are you going to use the principle if the first woe is Islam, the second woe is Islam, then the third woe is Islam for the Sunday law?
I don't think I want to be that precise because that,
Okay.
yeah, that's quite a precise doctrine. You actually take the characteristics of those woes and apply them or reapply them, however you want to say it. I bet if you tried to do that, I'd get in a mess with some bits and pieces wouldn't fit.
Exactly.
Whereas the woes fit pretty perfectly. So
Can we
sort of
say, I'm sorry, complete your thought.
I did. Go ahead.
Can we say it's a chiastic ending? Because for me, and now I'm going by my experience within the movement. I saw the literal reading and the way that the literal reading, right, it was brought out even through our difficulty with how we read the Bible. And it seems like Elder Perminder was working, laboring with so much love to try to get us to understand the symbolism. And then we also saw that play out with the Constitution and the way the Supreme Court reads. So I was thinking the Sunday law, the last Sunday law, we're seeing the literal, and then we'll see leadership, but I could be wrong. And we know our test too comes with the election, with who we're going to vote for, authoritarian or someone who upholds democracy. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah, okay. I can't really help you on that one, but nice thought. Just one thing you've reminded me, you could also maybe do internal, external. So you'll remember here, 2019 actually, Elder Tess would line up the two popes with our two leaders because they are the counterfeit church. So I think you can do internal, external. And let's face it, should we just admit it? Trump, okay, versus Biden, probably. I'll say probably just in case. But Trump is also someone who tried to usurp the leadership. That's all January 6th. It's in this history, 2020. Usurp the leadership and claim that they were actually the true leader. Funny enough, a lot of people were saying, God told you so. God told us so as well. So there's one of those experience-led leaders. But he was actually a dictator saying, I'm the one upholding democracy. So it's all, so I don't know if you can do internal, external as well, to show you what our shaking is going to be over. Okay, let's finish on this. So we placed 3A firmly here, just in line with shakings. In Revelation 14, must be about verse 12, I think, I don't know, 13. You read the three angels' messages, and then it says, here is the patience of the saints.
That's verse
Why do
12.
you need, is it verse 12? Okay. So why do you need patience under the three angels' messages?
Or the work to be made complete, for the fruit to be made complete. The husbandman, yeah, I'm trying to think that quote. The husbandman careth deeply for the, oh, I forget the quote, but patiently he's caring for each individual.
Okay. So caring for each individual, looking after the flock. I don't have children, but I've got cats. And I must say, it's a pleasure looking after my flock, my clouder of cats. I don't really need patience. 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes, but I don't really need patience because it's a pleasure. Okay. So that's
Is it to bear the persecution?
So persecution, have we been persecuted? Where is the persecution coming from?
Well, if we're talking about saints, then it's internally.
Internally? So where's the persecution coming from? Internally, yes. I guess obvious. Because we've already said it, so you've said it. It's the tares. Because this is the sowing.
And they're trying to choke us.
Yeah, they're trying to choke us. So you've got the good seed and the bad seed sown, I'd say a day apart, because it says when they went to bed that night, when they slept, they woke up. And we have been combating and dealing with the tares since 23 years or something like that, probably 22 years. And we've still got a ways to go. So that's why you need patience under the three angels' messages, because you've also got 2a and 1a. So you've got all three angels' messages arrived by 2001. Then it says, so here's the patience of the saints. You've got a couple of decades at least to go. Okay, I think I'll leave it there. Let's check the time. No, it's okay. It's a good time. Any thoughts? I didn't read any of the chat. If you put something in the chat, feel free to shout it out, or anything at all. Okay, if not, I'm going to say one last thing. We use the model of Noah here as well, because it is the simplest. I want you to all ask yourselves, who would have got on the ark? We're all going to say, I would. Then I'm going to say, why? Why would you have got on the ark? Because if I say, why are you going to stay on the ark here? Because you're already in it. You're all going to say, well, parable methodology. I studied it. It's airtight. All makes sense. Eden to Eden, etc. And you're going to point to doctrines. So what doctrine did Noah? Because as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of Messiah, Jesus. So it's going to be just like Noah's time, parts of it. So what doctrines did Noah give the people to study? Go, yeah, I want to buy my ticket to the ark. There's no doctrines. There's no science. It's never rained before, apparently, if I'm right. It's never rained before. And then Noah says there's going to be a literal flood. It's going to be rain. So you couldn't use science. No true stream and false stream or anything like that. So if you think you would have gotten on the ark, why? I think there's only one answer. Does anyone give someone a chance to say?
Could it be
the only reason you'd get on the ark?
Could it be we saw the animals get on?
That's a good point. Sorry. So there was some evidence. I'm thinking back here and I forgot about here. So that's a very valid point, but I'm going to try and squeeze that out. And I'm going to say, when the call goes to the people, why would you get on? Why would you get on time instead of late? Even though it's a valid point. The only reason you'd get on is because Noah said so. That's it. So if it's going to be like it was in the days of Noah, you might just have to follow the messenger.
Because you understand and accept the parable?
But Noah didn't give you any parables. He just said, get on board. It's going to rain. So if you can draw a parallel, maybe you can't, but you just do what the messenger says. Do what the leader says.
Okay. And that takes faith.
I guess it takes faith. You need to know who the ark is. You need to know who this field is. You need to know who you are in prophecy. You need to be firm who the elders are, who the leaders
Absolutely.
are.
Amen.
And not fall into this usurping leadership. Say, I don't like saying brother, sister, don't believe in time setting or anything like that. Okay.
Aaron?
Yes.
Also in Noah's day, you know, after they rejected the leadership and they didn't get on, it was actually considered a divine miracle, an act that God actually had all the animals. Noah didn't have to go fetch them all. They just came on the ark in the exact order that God wanted them to come on, the male and the female and the clean and the unclean by the pairs or sevens. And they got on. And you would have thought, if you were back then, if you were seeing all this, you would have said, maybe there is something to what Noah's talking about, because look at all these animals that just got on the ark, but they didn't. And to me, that just proves the fact that they already made up their minds. They closed their probations long before God sealed the door shut.
Yes, I know what you mean, and I agree, but I don't want to say they closed their probation, you said, before the door was shut. Yes. So that's what I said. That's what I meant earlier when I said you can come back on board all the way up till the day before Daniel 12:1. No one ever does it, and it's a lot to do with humility, not just how difficult is it for us as we study every day to absorb all this rain. Not only is it an academic problem for them to catch up, but it's a humility problem for them, where they're laughing at no, we're here, got all their friends on their side, and then they say, oh, sorry, I was wrong. It's quite difficult to do. Okay, if there's nothing else, let's close in prayer. Almighty God in heaven, we thank you again for good friends and for good fellowship. And we pray, Lord, you'll have mercy upon us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Aaron.
Thank you so
Amen.
much.
Thank you.
Aaron, can
Thank
I get
you.
a copy of your whiteboard?